This video is probably my mother's nightmare, or every mother's nightmare whose child goes abroad and says, okay, I'm probably not coming back anytime soon. What? I've been living in Singapore for 3 years now, and I still have no plans to go back. And I'm not alone in this. I've heard so many cases where people have been staying for over 7 years and not planning to move back soon. Instead, some even apply for PR or citizenship. So today I want to talk about why it is so hard for expats and foreigners to leave Singapore once they're here. I'm going to share 7 reasons and 6 till the end, where I'm going to talk about a topic where most of you probably disagree, or Singaporeans will not really want to hear this.
Hey guys, some of you were asking about the whole expat experience in Singapore, so I thought I'd give you some background. My husband Jim and I left New York for Singapore by choice 15 years ago. And people are like, oh, so do you like it? How's it going? And I'm like, well, we've been here 15 years. Duh, we obviously love it. And then other people are like, well, what do you do about the language? And I would say that the majority of people here speak English. It's not an issue, which is partly why we chose Singapore. My husband is tone deaf, so in Mandarin, which is probably the second most spoken language here after English, it has 4 tones, and my husband, I swear, is tone deaf. And so everything is like first tone for him. So thank goodness everybody speaks English. And then when I think about how long we're going to stay, I'm not really sure. I feel like this is home. My best friends are Singaporean women, and everybody here has really embraced us, except for some of you haters, but it doesn't matter. And this is home. We love it. Not going anywhere.
I'm an American expat living in Singapore, and today I want to talk about my use of the term expat. Anytime I use that term in a video, I get a lot of criticism from people saying that I shouldn't use that term because I'm actually an immigrant or a migrant, or even one guy said that I was a refugee for some reason, or that there's problems with using the term expat. And certainly in the vernacular, there are problems with using the term expat, but I want to be very precise with my language because I actually have a professional experience with this. You see, my background is actually in international law. Technically, I'm a lawyer. I don't practice law right now, and that has nothing to do with why I'm an expat, but that is my background. So that out of the way, let's go into the definitions. You can either use an NGO to define these terms, or you can use the dictionary. And I would prefer the dictionary over the NGOs because they all have an agenda on why they make definitions of things the way they are, and they tend to vary a lot organization to organization. So I'd rather use something that's a little bit more conventional, and that is the Oxford English Dictionary, which tends to be the most authoritative source on the English language. And the Oxford English Dictionary defines them as follows. Immigrant is somebody who permanently resides in a foreign country. Obviously, that's not me because I am not intending to permanently reside in Singapore or the Netherlands. I am moving there temporarily, and then eventually I will move back to the US. So then you've got migrant. And the reason I don't like the term migrant for myself is because migrant actually has a great deal of nuance. It means somebody who has moved to another country to find work or better living conditions. Maybe not better living conditions, just better conditions. And I don't know that necessarily always applies to my situation, because technically I can find work in my home country that is equal or better to the work I could find in other countries. However, I do also identify as a migrant. But the reason I use the term expat is because it is actually more broad, less nuanced, and more inclusive. Expat literally just means somebody residing in a foreign country. That's simple. And that's why I like it, is because it is so broad and simple in its definition. And actually, expat applies to anybody who has moved to a foreign country, regardless of their visa status or their reasons for moving or their socioeconomic status. And I love that about that word. Of course, like I said, it has been used historically in inappropriate ways by different groups at different times. However, actually, it literally just means somebody residing in a foreign country. So you can call me an expat, you can call me a migrant. I don't care which one you use. You're not going to offend me either way. Hope that clears things up. Thank you so much for following along on my journey.
Here's why leaving Singapore was one of the best decisions I've ever made. Number 1, more freedom. Singapore, small place. You know the place practically after living here for a year. Same old, same old. US, a lot of time to explore. Very vast terrain. You know, every place in the US is a new place. It's amazing. Number 2, the American high school experience. Singapore, they have American schools, but it's not anything like the American high school experience. The football games, the lacrosse games, the hockey games. You know, I go to an all-boys school, so, you know, no girls, but besides that, amazing high school experience. Number 3, academic weaponry. You know, Singapore, I was a horrible student. A lot of competition for academics. US, not so much, you know? I'm an academic weapon. The teachers love me. The fellas love me. What more can I say? I'm just an academic weapon now. See you guys.
Have you ever wondered why some Americans go to Singapore and never come back? It's not just about money or travel. It is about something deeper. Welcome back to Lika's Tech, and today we are diving into why Americans move to Singapore and stay for good. So let's find out what makes Singapore so different from United States and why many say once you live there, it's hard to leave.
Singapore fundamentally is a very different kind of community. One of the biggest differences is the amount of space. Singapore is one small city constrained by geographic, very small limitations. And there's a diverse population like there is in the United States and in many other places around the world. But because of the very small size of the country, the need, the necessity to get along with each other, everybody's aware of it all the time. And the consequences of any part of society falling through and not being well cared for is much more present than it might be if the land was much, much larger and the problem could be over there. There isn't really any over there over here.
Okay, these are 5 things in no particular order that I really miss as an American living in Singapore. First is I really miss cottage cheese. There's like one type of cottage cheese at my grocery store, if I can even find it, and it's like $14 and for like a very small thing of it, versus like in America, I feel like there's 1,000 kinds and like it just hits different than Greek yogurt. There's no substitute. 2, I really miss having to like think like, oh, it might be chilly later, let me grab a jacket. I literally don't have a jacket here. I have one sweater that I wear on like the plane and to travel with, but otherwise like I have like one pair of jeans that I haven't worn. I have no jackets. I have no long sleeves, like, and honestly, I just like want to be a little chilly, and that hasn't happened. Okay, my 3, I really miss Bud Light Lime. I know that sounds really trashy, and I don't drink Bud Light Lime all the time, but like sometimes I just miss some of the like domestic beer in America. Like they have good beer here, but a Bud Light Lime just like hits different, especially after like a beach day or a sweaty day or like whatever, and I just want it. Another like very American thing, piggybacking on the Bud Light Lime, is I miss like a Walmart or a Target. Like I really just want to like go into one large store and get like a bikini that fits my boobs, Clorox wipes, cigarettes, some clementines, and like a bottle of Gatorade for snacks or something. I don't know, but I just want options. Okay, that's 3. 4, I really miss having a car, or just like not having to take public transit. Like I will take Grabs and stuff occasionally, but like being able to like get in your car and like turn on a song and like sing it at the top of your lungs is just like a certain type of therapy that you can't pay for. And I haven't had that, I mean, in like years, because we used to live in New York City. And then 5 is, what's my 5th? Cottage cheese, big stores, Bud Light Lime, cars, and being cold. I guess that's 5. I don't know. I guess we'll see.
I'll never go back to Singapore, and here's why. Expensive? When I tell you it's expensive, think double expensive. We knew going over that it was going to be expensive, but wow, they've got this thing called Plus Plus. So if you've been to Singapore, you're going to know what I'm talking about. So they'll have the price, and then they'll have plus GST and plus a service tax. So essentially an extra 19% on top of what the price is. Then with the conversion, also what made it expensive was I'm a celiac, so I can't just wander into a hawker centre and sit down and have lunch. And the fact that they're not really up with what gluten-free is, there would have been a handful of restaurants that actually catered for gluten-free. When I say catered, I mean 1 or 2 dishes. One restaurant we went to was $150. I had a Coke, my husband had a beer, 1 entree and 2 mains. and it was 150 Australian. Pardon? We had a beautiful buffet lunch in the Marina Bay Sands. Seafood, Indian, all the desserts you could imagine. I think it was 87 plus Singapore for lunch. I could eat quite a bit, and the chefs were actually coming over and saying, I'll cook you gluten-free pasta and I'll make you this and I'll make you that. You can't have this. So that was really nice. We had 2 nights in Sentosa, 2 nights too many. Probably should have just had a day trip. Then we had 2 nights in between Marina Bay Sands and Chinatown, which was amazing. That was probably the best location we stayed. We stayed at the QT. The street right outside our motel closes every day at 5 o'clock, and it turns into, it's called Satay Street, and all these little stalls cook satay chicken, satay beef, satay prawns. Not that I could eat any, but my husband enjoyed that. And it was literally a 15-minute walk to Marina Bay Sands. And then the last 2 nights we stayed at Orchard Road. Beautiful place. The buildings are massive. Just the cost was next level. The only shops in Orchard Road that we could find were Tiffany, Gucci, Louis Vuitton, Prada. So kind of out of our price range. And if I wasn't celiac, I'm sure that the holiday would have been completely different, and we probably would have enjoyed it a little bit more. But all in all, very glad we went, but unfortunately at the end of the day we will not be returning.
Singapore is blessed, but it's not paradise. There is no utopia in the world. There is no utopia in Singapore, but Singapore has a lot of great attributes. So make the best of every single minute of the day. That's what I think. And I think that Singaporeans cannot rest on their laurels, because the Singaporean government is very, very smart, and they realize if you stop the flow of talent coming into this country, as a small country of 5 million people, will cease to be competitive.
Let's talk about why so many Americans fell in love with Singapore. It is not just the beautiful skyline, it is the system. In Singapore, everything works. Public transport is fast, healthcare is reliable, streets are spotless, and crime is almost non-existent compared to the US, where healthcare costs are crazy high and safety can depend on where you live. Then there is opportunity in Singapore. Singapore is Asia business hub, a place where tech, finance, and startup growing so fast. Many Americans who move there find better jobs, lower tax, and more global connection, of course. So, and the culture, it is disciplined, respectful, and peaceful. People follow the rules, things land on time, and the government is stable. It is different from freestyle chaos of United States, and some people just prefer that calm order. So after a few years there, they ask themselves why I should go back to United States, because in Singapore life just works. We still have another video. Let's watch them. I come back with a comment.
Singapore is the weirdest country in the world. If you are from the US, you'll go crazy living here. In the US, you generally don't take off your shoes before entering a house. My first impression there was like, oh my god, my American friends not only enter their flat wearing sneakers, but even they would jump on a bed with their shoes on. It's so different compared to what my mom taught me when I was a kid. And still, when I visit her, it's life-threatening to cross the border of the corridor with my shoes on. But Americans are really puzzled. Why in one of the cleanest cities in the world you would need to take off your shoes in the apartment?
One of the most surprising things for me I found when I moved overseas was that I don't actually miss home until I go back home. I thought that when I moved to Singapore, I would spend a lot of time missing my friends, missing my family. In reality, I've found that when I'm in Singapore, I'm extremely busy and I have a lot of friends and activities and things that I keep up with, so that when I'm here, I'm just very distracted. The moment that I get the saddest about leaving home is when I'm sitting on the plane about to fly back to Singapore and thinking about how I won't see my family for the next year. It's usually only once a year that I'm able to go home. I feel like every time I land, back in Singapore. I'm just so happy to be here. I love my life in Singapore so much. I love my friends in Singapore. I have, just like a lot going on in Singapore. But it's only when I do go home that I actually realize those things that I've missed out on, those like milestones that happen while I'm away that I don't get to see. And that can feel really hard sometimes. Maybe I'm lucky that I never really got extreme homesickness when I moved here, because I know that this isn't like a universal experience. I know some people do get homesickness, and I have felt lonely in the sense of like wanting to make friends when I first moved here, because obviously I didn't know anyone when I came here. But yeah, no, I've just found that interesting that like the time when it hits the hardest and the time when I miss home the most is when I am actively at home, not when I'm in Singapore.
So everyone knows how safe Singapore is. We've heard it countless times. I mean, everyone knows that common information, but let me break it down, like the difference it's made for me coming from the US. So let's say I'm back in the US and I have to go to a restaurant and sit down. So as I step into that restaurant, I'm going to look around, scope it out, see, is there any shady people there? Is there someone who's drunk or on drugs, or are there people fighting, for example? I'll also go into that restaurant and make sure I sit down in a place where I can see everyone, I can see the door, I can see who walks in, just so I can keep an eye on what's going on. The same place would work, or the same concept would apply if I go on like a train. I'm gonna stand with my back to the wall, for example, so I can see everyone who comes in and out. Is anyone acting crazy? Should I move away from people, right? This type of like scanning and this type of preparation for everyday life, I don't have to really do in Singapore. Of course, you need to watch out anywhere you go, but in Singapore, I can just go sit down at any table and feel pretty safe. I don't need to look around and assess the situation as much as I do in the US. So people say it's safe, but it really is such a valuable benefit in my day-to-day life when you come from somewhere where it's not as safe.
Things in Singapore that will send Americans into a coma. First, the homelessness rate. As of 2021, there are 616 homeless people in Singapore. Yes, they can count the exact number of homeless people in a population of 5.45 million. And the reason the homelessness rate is so low is because there's these amazing government housing. All my Singaporean friends tell me they're amazing and a really good deal. People actually get married for them because you have to be engaged when you apply for them, and before you move in, you have to be married. So yes, people get married for them, which is the next crazy thing about Singapore. And why won't you get married for the sake of getting an apartment? Isn't that a crazy idea? Well, you have 3 kids and need a 4-bedroom apartment. The rent for a 2,885 square foot apartment is $25,000 a month. That's why you have adults living with their parents. It's actually very common, like in many Asian countries, to have multi-generational households. In fact, if you move out of your parents' house before you get married, it's really frowned upon. People will be like, what, you hate your parents? This drives a lot of American nuts, but there's so many rules on which schools your kids can attend. Usually they're limited by distance. Even if you can't afford it, you can't opt for a private school unless the government allows you to go. So you have parents actually moving to live near the school of their choice. I know it's also common in the US, but in Singapore, it's actually quite a problem to the point where the government actually sends in inspections to make sure you're living where you say you're living, and you have to live there for at least 30 months. Oh, and the prices of cars. A Toyota Corolla will cost you close to $140,000. It just sounds bad because it's not in American dollars. What is it in American dollars? It's 105,000 US dollars. I have so much more, but I'm out of time.
Yeah, some Americans go to Singapore for work or adventure, but they end up staying for the peace, safety, and opportunity. It is not about running away from the US. It is about finding a place that fit how they want to live. Guys, what do you think? Would you like to move to Singapore if you had the chance? Guys, I hope you liked today's video. Thank you for watching. See you on another one. I love you. This is Lika's Take.